we already mentioned that if you have a factor, you have a 0. If you have a 0, you have a factor. We already know that. So if 2 is a 0, x minus 2 is a factor. And if x minus 2 is a factor, then 2 is a 0. We already knew that. Nothing new there. Here's the new thing that we haven't mentioned before in a math class I don't think you've seen. It's called the division algorithm. The division algorithm says if you know at least one factor of a polynomial, then you could use division to find another one. That kind of makes sense. For example, if I gave you a big number, like 132, not that big, okay, 3-digit number, and I said, what are some factors of that number? Some of you would immediately know some factors. That's awesome. But what if instead I gave you a little help? I said, okay, I'm going to tell you that, let's say, 4 is a factor. True or false? You don't have to tell me if you believe that. Well, what would you do? You divide it in, wouldn't you? Does 4 go into 132? And if it does, evenly, without a remainder, it would be a factor. But in the process of doing that, you would find another factor, wouldn't you? 4 times something that gives you 132. Similarly, what we're going to do in this first slide is we're going to say, here's a polynomial in expanded form. I'm going to give you a recommendation. Check this factor, okay? You divide, and then you see whether or not you really have a factor. So that's what we're saying. If you know at least one factor, then you could use division to find another factor. Also implicit in that, if you were checking for a factor, you need to get a remainder of 0. Okay, so let's take a look at this first one. Use long division to find the quotient. The quotient is just the answer to a division problem. And the remainder when the first polynomial is said to be divided by the second. So what I'm going to ask you to do is actually do B. I think I have written it out here nicer for you. Where did I write it? 7. Here it is. Yeah, it's there, but it's ugly, so I wanted to rewrite it for you. Here you go. Here's the pretty B. 3x to the 4th minus 6x squared plus 3x minus 7. My question to you is x plus 1 a factor of that polynomial? Is x plus 1 a factor of that polynomial? So once you write it down, we'll get started in a second.